Hello and welcome to another video. So we're checking out the latest rendition of Tenko Shire, which is pretty decent, especially with the current cards, so the early meta stuff's doing very well. The only real disadvantage in the matchup is probably against Dragon and Sword. Sword mainly due to the amount of non-damage that they can have now, so with both Mangus and the new Silver Drop, they can negate damage to most of their followers, making it very hard to clear them with Tenko Shrine, which obviously being your main card in this variation. There is quite a few different variations of Tenko Shrine, so I'm sure I'll go through a few iterations, but this is the first one that I've had some good success with. So I really love Holy Priest. She does an amazing job. Holy Water is a magical card on 1, which ends up being a lot better. Oh, sorry, for 1. Sealed Tomb, another great card. I normally like to just play it as a draw, but also works great as Forbidden Technique, which gives you 2 draws, and if you play it right, you don't need to worry about the drawback on that card. And the new Bashful is great as well. Having the healing and the ambush does allow you to set up nicely and just give you another way to continually heal and allow your opponent to really not be able to do anything. Other than that, we have the legendary Witch Gem Princess. A pretty amazing card. Definitely thought it was good before. Got to give it props for what it does. It does an amazing job, even just acting as a normal ward. Godsworn is just kind of in there to block out those dragons, because dragon can be a nightmare with those massive 10 damage storm. So I really want to avoid those as much as I can. Everything else is pretty good. I have thought about putting in the Thamires, but I just need to find a way that I want to put that in this deck, and then I think it would be perfect. So far it's done very well in the mirror matches, which have been one of the more common matchups, and it's done fairly well in a forest matchup, which ended very quickly as I just got set up so quickly the opponent couldn't really handle it. So we're going to get right into it and check it out. So we'll get the fastest game out of the way first with this forest matchup. This deck does tend to take quite a while when it comes to its matchups, because it is a more control-centric deck. So getting Tenko Shrine, very important. Being able to also get White Fang Temple does always help you out. I do also like using Holy Priest. Sometimes I will play it on 2, especially against something like Forest, where sometimes you want to be more aggressive. Doesn't mean that's always the case, but sometimes it's a nice play. Like in this case, I decided to hold it, especially with the other cards we've got. And not seeing a turn 1 really made me think about it. So we can go for our White Fang Temple pretty comfortably. I mean, White Fang Temple can't really be cleared by anything major this expansion so far, because obviously the Amulet Clear doesn't actually clear White Fang effectively, and they'd usually save it for a Tenko Shrine over White Fang anyway. So we go for the quick Tenko Shrine, and I also go for the Sealed Tomb for that extra draw power. We've already got decent cards, so I'm not too worried about just drawing 1 off that card. And then they kind of just build their board from there, which they do a very good job of. You've got to give them props where they're due. But we have a pretty sweet setup ourselves with Black Inscription and Holy Priestess doing a great job. Especially with Holy Water on 5. You can play a pretty nice amount of cards with this one. It's very versatile. So firstly, removing that of course is the best way to go, along with moving the 1-3. Then we can clear the entire board using Holy Water, and get that little bit of a heal as well. Plus Sealed Tomb set up for an extra bit of draw. Like I said, I like using those as just 1 card draws, especially when they cost nothing to play out. So it's not bad at all to use those in that way. Especially if you know your match is going to go longer. If I end up running out of cards later on, I do like to use them as a draw 2. Or if I'm really lacking those Tenko Shrines, I like to use them as a draw 2. And then the perfect card, obviously Infinite Heals, lets us clear off a couple of these followers and really develop our board. So Forest really doesn't have a good way to come back from that. Beauty and the Beast Forest, of course, would also be a huge problem for this deck, which is why I need to run some Banish. But of course, I mean, there's only really those 3 decks that I've had trouble with so far. I mean, Beauty and the Beast you don't really see as much. It's just not a card that seems to have held in rotation, at least for the day 1 of the game, so that's not too bad. As for going up against the other 2 classes, Dragon and Sword both gave me a bit of trouble. Dragon more so than Sword. I would definitely say Dragon's pushing me, but Sword I can see coming up very strong very quickly. So Sealed Tomb, great turn 1 play if you have nothing else. Of course, Globe of the Stairways is usually a better turn 1 if you have it. But these mirror matches do go for quite a while, as you are basically trying to get the lead on your opponent as best you can and as quickly as you can. And since both players heal, it's very hard to get those pings off. But we've got a pretty decent hand, so now it's just a matter of taking the initiative. We can almost mirror our opponent's moves from this turn forward, starting off with this White Fang Temple. And then mirror straight into the Tenko. Our turn 5 though isn't looking quite as good yet, although we do have the Holy Priest and the Blackened Scripture, but they do go for their own Tenko, so maybe just playing our own out is the best way to do things. I mean, we're set to 15, they'll go down to 15, we'll go back up, they go back up next turn, and then we just play our Gem Priestess. If we can get that off before theirs, we should be in a pretty nice spot. Since they are going for Gemstone, it does mean that we don't have to worry about the Gem Princess coming down for them now, which means we should end up in all ahead of them. Of course, we do need to remove the 6/6, which is why the Gem Princess is going to be good. Two of them not so useful. Once you play one, they do just act as a 4/5 ward, which definitely isn't bad, but not as good as the base effect. If they stacked, they would be absolutely crazy cards. Really, you're only wanting 3 just so you can consistently pull it from the deck, as 1 probably wouldn't be consistent enough. I think you might get away with 2 of them, but I think the 3 is the optimal for consistency. Plus, you can't go wrong with a ward in a control style deck. So they're really looking to deal with this, which isn't really a bother to me. We do have a White Fang, a Holy. We've got a few decent options to take this going forward. So the Holy Waters are probably my favourite card so far. The 1-drop heal 2 draw a card is way too valuable. Better than the standard Holy Water for sure. If I had have realised that, I probably would have attacked first and done that in a different order, but I guess overall it doesn't make a huge difference. And of course we did get a nice bit of damage there, 8 to the face. So there is their own Gemstone, their own Holy. Nothing too impressive so far. Like I said, this mirror matches are quite long and you could consider them a little boring, because they go basically as you'd expect. The person who can get ahead on board is usually the person in the better position. I find it's nicer to react to your opponent than it is for them to react to you most of the time, but usually that's how the game goes. So I decided that it didn't matter which way I went with this time, because we were going to be able to clear everything anyway. So being able to just hit this carapace down to a 1, ping them all, is going to be fairly decent. And we get to keep up a 4/3. So the biggest advantage we've still got is our Gem Princess. Them not having one until now really put us ahead when it comes to dealing with their boards. They're going for their own Sealed Tomb now though. So they're looking for their own draws. Do decide to go for Moria. I thought that was an okay way to do things, and Beacon of Salvation at least gave me a good option, I guess. Although I probably should have just went for the 8 damage to face, thrown the 2/3 there, Jane down, cleared them out, used Blackened Scripture and just gone for that 8, but that's just something I ended up doing. Which definitely meant this game ended up dragging out longer than it was planned to, but it's really just that back and forward gameplay of this matchup. So again, we can remove all of this. This time, Blackened Scripture gets used, so we do manage to remove something. And we're already set up to destroy whatever they play, along with getting a little bit of damage onto them. But really, there's not much to this matchup. As long as you react better to their boards than they react to you, you can win pretty much every single time. So it just comes down to who ends up being the better Haven player and who has the better luck on the draws. Although draws, while they play a key role in the early game, by the time you get to the late game, you can draw so many cards that it just doesn't matter. Like, as you see here, the amount of cards that I can continue to draw off this is absolutely crazy.
How could you?
Dealing upwards of 8+ damage per turn to their board. Godsworn might slow you down a little bit, but it's still not something to worry about too much. I mean, I can't remove this now, but this ward at least should block them from dealing 5 damage to me. And buy me a little bit of time. Because Godsworn doesn't make a big difference when you're winning through Tenko damage, as you are only dealing 2 when Godsworn only really blocks down to 4 anyway. And that is where we gain our lethal, drawing both our hinds there, being able to play them both as light hinds, does give us 8 damage just off those, plus the normal heal off the Gem Princess ability gives us that extra that we need to really finish this off. We probably could have kept going and drawn this out longer, but why not win where we can?
I envy you.
So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I very much enjoyed playing this deck, as I always do with most Haven decks, and the alt leaders now, the new ones, are great fun to use. So if you haven't bought those, I highly recommend getting them, as they are all pretty awesome, and I plan on using them most of the time in most videos from now on, so hopefully you guys will enjoy that. But we'll surely have more Tenko as we go through this next month or so, as this is going to probably stay a pretty popular deck and reasonably powerful, and I'm sure there'll be lots of iterations and changes as time goes on, and I'm sure I will follow those as they go. So stay tuned if you do enjoy Haven, and until next time, see ya.